listen, this is going to come out on the day of your birth. So I just
Wow.
think we need to take a second and celebrate you and say, happy birthday.
Praise the angels for my existence.
You beautiful young lady.
I am. I'm still a spring chicken, baby.
You are.
I got
mean,
many years left in this tank, my friend.
compared to me, you're basically a tiny little baby.
I know.
Okay.
I'm so much younger.
You're so much younger. You're a tiny baby. And so I just want to say happy birthday.
Thank you.
Hope when this airs, you're having the best. Oh, your birthday's on a Monday.
Yeah, that's why it's airing
Mine
today.
was on a Monday this year. It's the worst day of the week to have your birthday, if I'm being honest.
Oh, I mean, it feels really nice to me because I can just take the day off.
Oh, yeah. See, I do timesheets every Monday. So, like, maybe our experience is just
a little bit different. I know the other days is when I have my stuff. So Monday is my like flexible day. So like I'm cool with it being a Monday.
Let me ask you a question. Your husband's birthday is
3 days.
3 days after yours. Your anniversary is like in between there somewhere.
The 24th. So our anniversary was yesterday.
Oh.
My birthday's today.
Oh,
and then his birthday is the 28th. And we purposely got married the same week as our birthdays. So we figured that there's no way we could forget everything.
Okay. So that was going to be my question.
Now we're like, we won't forget.
Do you feel like it was like a good choice because you have like one big celebration for all?
Yeah.
Or do you want separate celebrations?
Have you ever seen me celebrate anything?
I mean, yeah, you're so good at celebrating.
But I mean, like, I'm not really someone who's like, I want to celebrate my anniversary.
Right. That's fair.
I'm not like a romantic person, I would say. Right. So we just do everything at once. In theory, when we first came up with this plan, it was like, oh, well, now we'll take a trip every year for anniversary.
Such a good idea.
Do you think we've ever done it?
No, but there's still time. I mean, you got your whole lives.
Yes, we've been married 7 years.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Time flies.
Time flies.
Isn't that like 7 years is the 7-year itch? You've been together for so long. Yeah, no, I think it's the opposite. That means we're bored. I think it's the opposite.
Oh, I'm horny for other people.
Yeah.
Oh, is this when? But we know the actual research on infidelity and cheating. It's not. None of it says 7 years.
Yeah, no. But yeah, it's just a
fun thing we say.
Fun urban legend.
Well, maybe I'll be horny for interior decorating or something fun we'll do in our 7th year.
Whoa. Who isn't horny for who isn't horny for interior decorating?
I know. My husband was like, what do you want for our anniversary and your birthday? And I was like, nothing.
And nothing.
Peace
and quiet.
Peace and quiet. Yeah, there's nothing that I want. I feel super cool. I birthdays are not triggering for me. For some people, it's like a lot of feelings. I don't have that experience. Sometimes the pressure around other people wanting to celebrate your birthday, I think, is difficult. But typically we just plan something every year and do our own thing. So then no one's being like, what do you want to do for your birthday? Because I don't like that. That feels like a lot of pressure to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, happy to be here, happy to be thriving. It's confusing for my daughter though, right? Because she thinks everything is her birthday. Like every time we have like a birthday party, she's like, and mine's tomorrow. And I'm like, no, yours is like still in the winter. Right, and so it's really confusing to have our anniversary and birthdays because she's like, this is definitely for me, right? And I'm like, yeah, baby, it is.
Do you think she feels left out? Like everyone's celebrating their birthday.
I will say this
is your anniversary.
This is when my daughter feels very left out, this is a big thing in our household. So I have an only child. So obviously she has her own room. I sleep with my husband. And so will get really upset. She says like, why do you guys get to sleep together and I have to sleep alone? That's her one like big lonely thing. It's a solid question. Now she says this and ends up in our bed most nights by 2 a.m. So and she's so quiet. She's like a ninja. So you like don't even notice. Like people are always like, you just let her sleep there. Don't put her back. And I'm like, I don't even wake up. I like wake up and she's looking at me and she's like, hey, mommy. And I'm like, when did you get here? So like doesn't even like she's just so quiet and just like sits.
Honestly, I'm gonna be honest. That sounds like a nightmare to me.
That is
fucking child hovering over me. being like, hi, mommy. Like, oh my God, I will have nightmares for the rest of the week.
What she usually says to me, because we went through a phase where she would get in the bed and then try to sit on my chest and sleep on top of me. And so now, anytime, like now we're always like, you cannot sleep on top of mom. You have to sleep in the middle. So now usually I wake up and she listens to me and she goes, I didn't sleep on you. And I'm like, thank you.
That's so nice. Nellie does that to me where she lays on my neck and she's like strangling me, but I don't want to wake her up. So I'm like, this is just how I'll die. And if that is the way I die, please put that on my tombstone.
Suffocation by Kitty Fur.
By Kitty Fur.
I love that. I think that's perfect.
Right? Isn't that beautiful? It just like, it speaks to my soul.
So thank you for the birthday shout out. Happy to be here. Hope I don't know if there's other Libra September babies, but happy birthday to them too.
Wow. Yes. So good.
Hey, Maddie wrote in, what's the best lesson you have learned from your therapist? You want me to do mine? What do you think? You seem like you're really got to think this through.
Yeah, I do.
Mine is the thing that has been drilled into I have two different things that I really get from my therapist. And I feel like when I say these, they don't sound mind-blowing, but they are very big mantras for me. So one is that you are not for everyone. And the second one is kindness does not equal loyalty. Or niceness doesn't equal loyalties. Those are the two things that has really hit home for me. They don't sound mind-blowing, but they have been very helpful for me.
That's good. Okay, mine, it's not a specific like saying as beautifully as that, but mine is a lot around emotional boundaries, like where I end and other people begin. And the best ways to set that, I also have another one, is that communicating using other people's language. So you take the language that they typically use in situations, and you take that language and you infuse it into your communication with them, as opposed to using your own language. So I'm trying to think of a specific example. Like my husband often wants to like help me with things, right? He like really wants to help with the business. He wants to be very helpful.
He's always helpful to me. I feel like Bill is someone I call in panic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
He can talk you down.
He loves that, but he likes using the word like help, right? Like helpful. And so if we're having a disagreement about something, or like I have an idea about something, he has a different idea, my therapist talked about like, why don't you use the term like, this would be so helpful to me, right? Like this would be, so like taking the language that feels really potent for him and infusing it into the way in which I communicate with him. Cool. It's been very helpful.
Cool. All right. Hey, we got tremendous amount of listeners on Not Taking Shit Personally episode. We got so many follow-up questions. So we're just going to do a part 2 before we get too far away from that episode, because this is still fresh. So we wanted to get that out there. We're going to go through a ton of different follow-up questions people had today.
Apparently a lot of you are taking things personally. We get it.
Thousands of people are taking things.
So many people are taking things. It was a big hit.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about rejection sensitivity. This word is way more common now than it's ever been before. A lot of it has to do with the normalization and the spaces around ADHD, because it's incredibly common in adults with ADHD. So rejection sensitivity is a problem that interferes with your ability to regulate your emotional response to feelings of failure and rejection. So while rejection is almost always unpleasant for like everyone, people with RSD experience overwhelming levels of emotional pain. So here's like a few examples that might look like people report like, sometimes the smallest change in tone can make me catastrophize and worry for days what I did wrong. So can't move on from it. My emotions can get so unbearably strong and unstoppable that I'm afraid of experiencing them all. It's easy for me to forget who I am when criticized, and I hyper focus on the negatives, and then it feels like this moment is like the forever, right? So that's a few things people say. A lot of times people that experience people had this experience with RSD typically have ADHD, autism, social anxiety, trauma, and it just triggers feelings of depression and rage, anger, or severe anxiety, right? So like I don't have rejection sensitivities for you. So I might feel upset that someone's rejects me, but it doesn't put me into a place of depression, rage, or like severe anxiety, right?
Right.
So like basically it is the extreme version of what most people experience, which I think is always like really easy for people to be like, that's not real. But like if you've never experienced it, like, yeah, no shit, you say it's not real.
I also think
yeah,
it's easy for people to be like, I have that, like on the
yes,
other
you
end of
don't,
it, people to be
yeah.
like, that is me.
Well, it's like how like, the internet labeled everyone as narcissistic as opposed to like they could have a narcissistic trait, like so like
Exactly.
this doesn't mean you have it, but here's what things and somebody wrote in. It is, you will see some people with people pleasing have this. Part of people pleasing is a way to adapt to not experience this. So yeah, so we wanted to talk about that a little bit. And then basically how to deal with not taking rejection personally. I know we talk about this a lot, but we're going to review it. One of the biggest things is learning how to self-regulate and then to have that internal monologue with yourself of how to speak through this, because even if something feels very personal initially, usually you can get down to some reasons that it's really not about you. I have a really good Reddit story. So
Yes.
there's a Reddit thread of am I the asshole? Have you ever seen this before? It's very
No.
okay. Okay. Even that is the most common thing on
I'm not
Reddit. Okay.
I'm not a Reddit girly.
But I feel like it gets put anywhere. So whatever. So this is really great. Reddit thread, and people write in, am I the asshole or not? Somebody recently wrote one in saying, am I an asshole for telling my sister my sister-in-law she doesn't need to wash the baby clothes? And so somebody tells a story about, I'm a mom of 3, I gave my sister-in-law all of my hand-me-down clothes, and as soon as I gave it to her, she threw them in the washer. And I found this very offensive because obviously my stuff is clean, blah blah. She goes and tells this whole story, and she talks about how she is very basically incredibly fucking insulted that her sister-in-law would do this. Sister-in-law could have many reasons that don't have shit to do with your home. Right? So she's a first-time mom. It's a recommendation given to first-time mothers. She's nesting. She just wants to take any allergens off of it. It's been, folded up. She wants to. There's so many fucking reasons that it don't have shit to do with you. But this woman was taking. I mean, her response, and even she like edited another response of like, she should know that I keep my house better than that, and it's insulting. And she said, how would you feel if somebody put your stuff right in the laundry? I'm like, okay, every time I've ever gotten hand-me-downs, I put that shit in the laundry
immediately.
And I would imagine anytime I give hand-me-downs to someone, they put that shit in the laundry, right?
It has nothing to do with the person.
But it was such an interesting thing of like, this woman is really feeling so hurt.
Yes.
That her sister-in-law did this very typical thing. And then she really made this first-time mother's experience about her. And so I thought that was an interesting
such a good example.
Yes, yeah.
Such a good example. And the first thing that comes up for me is, how is this person feeling about themselves as a mother, as, like trying to maintain everything, because it might speak to a level of insecurity that they're already feeling, right? Where if you're like, okay, yeah, like I'm doing okay, like I'm holding it together, my house is clean, I'm okay with it. And someone does that, it doesn't even affect you. It doesn't even bring that to your mind where you're just like, okay, like it doesn't feel as personal. And so sometimes when things feel super personal to us, it's because it's poking at our deepest insecurities, the things that we already struggle with within ourselves. Those are the things that can feel the most personal to us. And instead of saying, whoa, I'm feeling really insecure about the way that I'm like handling all of this, and I feel really overwhelmed. And instead it gets projected onto someone else that is poking at that insecurity. Yeah. That it ends up being, it's easier to say this is about them than this is about me, because that would mean that you would have to acknowledge whatever shame is coming up for you that's connected to that insecurity. And shame is such a painful, unproductive emotion that we feel. Yeah. And so instead of if you're feeling that way about something that's happening in your life, and I would say, can you take a moment to say, is this tugging at an insecurity for you? Are you already struggling with this? And how is that playing out in your anger towards this person, or feeling like they're doing something that's very personal to you?
Yeah. Is personalization linked to people pleasing? Could be. I typically think about it in terms of linked to cognitive distortions, which could be higher for folks who struggle with people pleasing. But I think it's not necessarily it's a symptom, not an origin, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it would be that taking things personally can be part of people pleasing because you're so worried about everyone thinks and you're so aware of everything. And typically people pleasers are like incredibly in tune of what's happening. And so even the smallest thing, right? So let's say Jen and I are in an interaction. I have never. We're in an interaction and I'm having like, I'm about to poop my pants. Like I'm like, the diarrhea is coming. This is what's going to happen. And she's talking to me about something and I'm not responding. I'm not responding because I'm trying not to shit my pants.
Right.
But Jen takes this as I don't agree with her, or I don't like what she's saying, or I'm mad at her, and she reads into this facial emotion that I have. Here's the thing. If you're a people pleaser, you're highly aware of those things because you're so trying to like scope people out at all times. You forget to think that maybe someone else is just going through some shit.
Literally. But literally. And now now anytime that you're not attuning to me, I'm going to think that you're trying not to shit your pants,
which would be on brand. Why is it so hard? I'm literally a therapist who helps people with this, yet I struggle with it so much myself.
Dude, let us just say, same. Same. There's so many therapists that listen to this podcast. So
can you all write in? Do you also struggle with talking shit?
Oh, that can be.
I'd love to hear. We should do a fucking poll.
We should do a poll. I also
have to say, I think because sometimes when you're a therapist, you like hold yourself to a higher standard.
Yes.
Like it's very normal to take shit personally. We all try to move against it, but like I feel like sometimes when you're a therapist, you're like, well, I shouldn't experience this. Right. I should know better. I'm like, you're still human, baby.
You're still a human. And I think that is a common thing of like, because I know all this, it means that I shouldn't experience the human emotions that everyone experiences. And listen, we're trying as best as we can to tell you that like we deal with this too.
Yeah.
You know, we can talk about this and talk about the reasons why we take things personally, but if either one of us has an insecurity and someone says or does something that triggers that, we're going to feel the same way. Yeah. You know, it's just natural. You know, we talk through it with each other so we can like hold each other accountable and say like, hey, where is that coming from for you? So that's really helpful. But this feels similar to the question of like, how do I not feel this? Right? Like, because I'm a therapist, I shouldn't experience this. But it's hard. It is so hard, especially, I don't know if you're new in the field, but when you are new in the field as a therapist, it is really hard. It's much harder too. And I think that's with anything, right? Because once again, when your insecurities are higher, feeling more insecure. And when you're new to anything, you're going to feel more insecure, more out of place. And so let's say you're a therapist in private practice and you just started, and clients, you know, come in and then they leave very quickly. It is so easy to take that personally, right? Where sometimes you're just not a good fit. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. I mean, maybe there was something, maybe there was a break, maybe you didn't hold the space that they needed, and it could also be just that it wasn't a good fit. It could also be that they weren't ready for therapy. It could also be that it went a little too deep for them and they needed to back off. So there's so many possible reasons. I think sometimes as a therapist, for the therapists that are listening to this, because we don't get an answer a lot of the time why clients drop off, we're quick to say, well, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What could I have changed? Which at times can be really productive if you can say like, listen, I think that was a misstep, or I think I could have done this differently, or I think I could have attuned to this client more. But my question would be, at what point is it no longer productive for you? Is it not helping you grow? Is it not helping you to move forward? So, as a therapist, that's something to remember when you work with people and you're experiencing this over and over and over again. It's very easy for this to come up in your work. So if you're a therapist listening to this, very natural.
You know, one of the things we talk about with clients is we talk about the sort of the origin of this internalization and personalization, right? So when you are a kid, you are told that the world is good, right? So you are told it through movies and through books, and it's like this messaging you get: the world is good and your caregivers love you and blah blah. And then bad shit happens, right? My parents aren't the best parents. I get abused, or I get ignored, I have emotional neglect, right? But because you've been told the world in a black and white, you said the world is good, 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 but something bad happens. The only thing that makes sense in a young child's mind is, well, if the world is good and something bad happens, I must be the bad. Because we're not able to have critical thinking and understanding of context and abstract views. Can't see context. And so at a young age, we start to develop of, I must be the bad. It must come from me. And when you start that from a young age and continue to internalize things on, you're going to carry that with you. And it's going to shape some shit in your life.
That it is.
Yes.
I love this one. What are some mantras when taking things personally to pull myself out of it?
Yeah, I want to hear yours.
Not everything is about me. I am in control of my feelings and reactions. Others' opinions do not define my worth. People act based on their own experiences and perspectives, not mine. I can only control what I can control. Negativity from others reflects their inner state, not my self-worth.
I feel like you did a little more prepping for this question than I did. So mine was, their reality is not my reality. And then the other one I had, which is not necessarily a mantra, but something to do, is, so what if it's true? If someone says to me, well, you're a bitch. So what if it's true? What if I went deeper? Okay, then does that mean that I don't have worth and I should die? Probably not. Does that mean that no one will ever love me? Probably not. Does that mean that I will be left alone by everybody and isolated? Probably not. And so these things, this fear about what you're taking personally, what if it was true? And what if we went deeper with that, and to continue going down? Okay, so what does that mean? What would that mean? What would that mean? Go deeper and deeper down.
I love that because it helps you to connect with the bigger meaning that you are making of these things.
Yeah.
And when you can understand and get to the bigger meaning, you can also question that meaning, right? That we assign meaning to things without realizing it based on our past experiences. And so when you're asking yourself, well, what if, right? I love what you said about like, okay, so if someone thinks I'm a bitch, what does that mean? Does it mean that I'm not worthy of love? Does it mean everyone's going to leave me? Right? That these are, when you're getting down to the deeper meaning, you're also able to question those meanings and if they're true or not.
Yeah. Okay. I like this one. How to depersonalize an association with someone. I'm embarrassed by a family member. Ooh, that's interesting.
Well, my first thought about that is that it's possible you have an enmeshed family. Reason why I say that is because it's hard to separate yourself from your family members, right? The assumption is that because my family member is this way, it reflects on me. It must be something about me. So I would first look at the family rules. What do the rules tell you? That if someone else in the family acts a certain way, that it's your responsibility to clean up, that like blood is thicker than water, and like you need to, be loyal, and loyalty in your family means that you need to back them up and take responsibility for whatever they're doing. And it might be the case that as you're listening to this episode, as you're recognizing that maybe you take things too personally, or you're taking responsibility too much for other people and their actions, that a huge boundary is needed between you and other people in your family. And what that means is you might have to break some family rules in order to start creating those boundaries for yourself, which is uncomfortable. And it also may alter relationships in your family dynamic. And so if that's something you're grappling with, I would also say to ask yourself, well, if I don't do this, then what is the cost to me? How will this end up affecting me if I don't start setting these boundaries? I don't start creating separation, because it isn't your responsibility to, take responsibility for what someone else is doing. That it isn't about you, that association. Just because you're blood with someone doesn't mean that it's connected to who you are as a person.
Yeah. I take things personally and then I feel bad about it. How to get through the guilt. It's interesting. I'm wondering where the guilt comes from and if it's shame and not guilt. Right? So like the guilt is I did something bad. The shame is I am bad.
Right.
There's nothing bad about taking things personally.
Right.
It just happens. But I'm interested about where the bad is coming from and feels from. And so it says, so how do you get through guilt? So let's say that it is guilt that we're talking about, and this person feels like you did something bad. I guess I would say, what did you do? Did you react to this person? Did you lash out at them? You took something personally, and then what did you do? And if you did something that you're not proud of, let's say that Jen took it personally that I was making this face, but really I had to go to the bathroom, that she says to me, "Are you fucking kidding me that you're not responding to me right now?"
So me.
And that's very you. It's like definitely a thing that would ever happen in our relationship. But then Jen feels very guilty by that. She gets to come to me and say, like, that was about me and not about you.
Yes.
That was an overreaction for me, right? So like a lot of times guilt is like, if you feel guilty, do something about it. Yes. You have the opportunity to. But I wonder if this person's talking about shame and not guilt, because they feel very similar in our bodies.
Yes. And if it's something, we had an incredible episode with Dr. Kristen Neff about self-compassion. And, we say all the time that, like, as we talk through these things, once again, like, you're human, this is going to happen. And so I wonder, are you beating yourself up internally about taking things personally? Like, what are your expectations of yourself in general? It is so natural to take things personally. It's like part of our functioning as human beings. And so it's not about not taking things personally. It's about what you do with that, how you work through it after you take that personally, understand where that's coming from for you. So I just want to, once again, just acknowledge that, like, you are going to take things personally, and it's okay to not be hard on yourself about that. Cause I wonder if that's where maybe some of the guilt is coming from, is beating yourself up for just taking things personally in general.
Yeah. Somebody said, what if it's coming from a parent? Like, they're my parents, so it must carry more weight. Then you're making an assumption about your parent as being emotionally regulated, emotionally mature. And many of us do not have that in their lives. But let's give an example of that. My mother listens to this podcast. I love my mother. I'm incredibly close with her. I cannot tell you how many times my mother has corrected my grammar. Mom, I know you're listening to this episode. You know that you do this. I talk very fast. I fuck up grammar all the time. I have ADHD. I have pressured speech. I was in speech therapy for the beginning part of my life. And I just, whatever, I fuck up grammar. Here's the thing. My mom corrects me. She lets me know. I don't give a shit because I'm not going to change anything. But if those comments made it feel like, oh man, because my mom said this, I should stop doing the podcast, or I should not talk, or I should talk super slowly, or I should write down what some people will do. We know, like, people that do podcasts, that they pre-write their scripts and then they edit the shit out of everything. That wouldn't work for us, and it wouldn't work for me. But my grammar is wrong. My mom corrects me. That's fine. So the thing is that people, we could think it carries more weight, but I would also say, how much criticism do I experience from that person if I have a highly critical parent? I don't know if I would take everything as truth. And the other thing is, somebody could be telling the truth and do it mean.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is we might say there's more weight from my parents, and sure, maybe they're right, but maybe my mom is totally right about my grammar. You are, Mom. But my mom doesn't do it as like, your grammar's so fucking bad on ShrinkChicks. Right. She says like, hey, you said this, you used a wrong term. And so I would also say to yourself, how does this person bring things up to me that I personalize? And how have I adapted for that? Yeah.
I also think there are things that maybe, something might be true for your parent that isn't true for you, right? So like, for example, Emily's mom, hi. It might be important for her, right? Grammar might be very important for her. It might be something that she holds and says like, this is important to make sure you do this. For you, it might not be as important, right? Yeah. So my question for this person is, just because something carries weight for your parent, does it have to carry the same weight for you? And maybe throughout your life or throughout childhood, in order to stay connected to your parent, which once again is survival when we're kids, the weight that your parent held over something had to be the same weight that you held over something in order to stay connected, in order to stay close. As an adult, you get to decide how much weight those things hold for you as a person based on your values, based on what's important to you. And so that's what I would say if you're in that phase of life where you're deciding, is this important to me? Like, for example, my mom always said, she's like, well, you can't get piercings, you can't get tattoos because other people aren't going to respect you. She was so worried about me getting a job. Like it was the whole thing. And so
Little does you know, you'd start your own business. And
I know. I was like, watch this. But over time, as you get older, you have to decide, like, is that actually something that matters to me? It clearly mattered to her, right? Generationally, that was important to her, but that's not something that carries weight to me, and that's okay.
How can I let go of comments made by my in-laws about my parenting and boundaries? I think Jen just said it, right? Like how those people parented might not be how you parent. And I think it's hard. I think sometimes we see people as older or authority figures, and we think that they are automatically right no matter what. Yep. And that might not be true. So one, you can also tell people, I don't want to hear this information. Thank you so much for your comments on my parenting. It's, not something I want to hear. And then I can ignore it and move on and say, that's their shit, not my shit. And I know we're hitting the end of our time and we have to do Dear Em and Jen. All right, you ready?
Yep.
How do you navigate feeling like second best in my relationship? I, a 28-year-old female, feel very confident in myself generally. I have a great career, amazing friends, a loving relationship. However, I'm struggling with my confidence regarding my physical appearance for most of my life. My partner, 30 male, has taken a bit more time to get on his career path and doesn't have quite the same network of supportive friends and family. What he does have is seemingly unending stream of compliments and admirers. Everywhere we go, someone is telling me or him how handsome he is, how great he looks, or how lucky I am. I know I'm lucky to have a physically attractive and kind-hearted partner. I just can't help but feel inferior in those moments where people are complimenting his appearance and then say nothing to me. Of course, I have loved ones who tell me I'm beautiful enough, and being honest, I've never had any trouble attracting male attention, but this feels different. I know we're not supposed to derive our confidence from external validation, but these moments feel like a real trigger for my low self-esteem. How can I manage the difficult emotions that happen in these moments and not take it as a sign that I really am ugly? My partner deserves all the praise, and I don't want to ruin that for him. Woo!
Whoa.
That would trigger the shit out of me.
Same.
Although I will say, everyone calls my husband, they call him Ting, like that, like he's so perfect that when he smiles it tings. And that's like a thing that's said, right? And it's true. My husband is good at literally everything he does. And it is hard to have a partner like that. It doesn't make you feel good.
Everyone tells me how attractive Bill is all the time.
He is pretty hot.
And I'm like, and I'm like, hey.
Me too.
Like, you're okay.
They're like, you're lucky you snagged him. That's a really triggering thing. And the other thing is, this person, I love that they're like trying to talk themselves out of this emotion. They're like, I shouldn't derive my self-esteem. I don't know, man, that sucks.
Yes, that's just hard. It's just hard.
What would you do? If you were in her position, what would you do? I'd make a joke about it every time.
Yeah, I think I would do that too. I think I'd be like, yeah, I'm a lucky lady. I think I would like say shit like that. Yes. But I think this goes back to a lot of what we were talking about when someone says something and it brings up your biggest insecurity, right? And when you've been feeling insecure about your physical appearance for so long, that when you're constantly hearing this feedback over and over and over again about your husband, and you're not getting anything from that, of course it's going to bring that up for you.
Yeah.
So once again, I think it highlights the things that we need to look at within ourselves. And at the same time, you are allowed to feel that and know that that's okay. And it just because you're feeling that emotion doesn't mean you're ruining anything for him. Yeah. I also think people present it as a compliment to you.
Yeah.
Like they think that they're also complimenting you by saying that. But still, understandably so, it would be triggering and feel personal.
Yeah. And I don't think it is personal in this situation. Right. But that feeling of being personal, and I would say to your partner, hey, this is actually a hard thing for me. And then it lets your partner know that when these things happen, it gives them an opportunity to say, like, I look good, but look how hot she is. Or like, like I'm the lucky one here. Or, what I used to say when I was going through a very passive aggressive time, people would say this to me and I'd be like, oh, but he didn't get into MIT.
That's amazing.
She's very snarky. I'd be like, and like, incredible. Also, let's be clear, my husband went to like a top robotics, but I was like, oh, well, just so you know, one negative thing has happened ever. He has no childhood trauma, but yes. Yeah. And so that's a hard thing. So like for me, like I'm going to make humor about it because I'm going to address it. But it's also like, what would it be like for you to be like, oh, this is really hot. And I also really know that I hear all these things about it. And also to then decouple away from the appearance versus what you love about this person. That is it. We're going to get kicked off here for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. We always ask you to rate, review, subscribe, follow an Apple Podcast. You can check out our merch at ShrinkChicks.com. You can get our journal on Amazon and ShrinkChicks Journal. You can follow us at ShrinkChicks. You can follow us at the therapy group. If you are looking to start or to continue your therapeutic journey, we would love to connect you with one of our amazing clinicians. You can check out thetherapygroup.com. And don't forget that to know yourself, you gotta grow.